sure I don't remember to do that. And I'll start with, again, I think I'll start with the test. Just give you the quick answers. Maybe we can go around the horn. This is kind of what the exam looks like. Again, it's gonna be 50 questions. It's gonna be take home. And, so it'll be a little bit challenging, a little bit, but you have a week to do it. So you can commiserate, and I don't care about exams all that much, as long as, you guys take away what I think is useful for what you do. So, as a discipline, lean is focused on which of the following? It's a no-brainer.
A.
Anybody?
A.
A with elimination of waste, and I think Six Sigma is elimination of variation. That's the difference, right? So our processes vary, and so lean is waste time, really pulling time out of our processes, and Six Sigma is variation. And example of CTQ, this one's a little bit, maybe might have thrown.
I got an A.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had A as well.
I had two. A. Which of the following tools? 80-20. That's
A.
A again. We're on a roll with the A's. You answer A on all the test questions, you probably get a 90. I don't
A.
know. No, I don't know. A. The project charter is done during the
A.
yeah, the A again. And I think, like a lot of these are fresh in your head, but after we do hypothesis tests and everything else, you might not forget when we did the charter. Which of the following is critical to a project? This is often one that people get wrong often on the
C.
exam. Nope.
No? Oh, that's
Don't
too
forget
wrong for me.
Yeah, reducing muda is that's waste. It's another Japanese word for waste.
Waste.
So Six Sigma project, what's critical? Anybody have another option?
I had A.
Yeah, this is the one that I think that gets, believe it or not, this is the one that people get often most. It's the answer is D on that.
D?
Yep. Leadership support.
I got that wrong.
And the document that authorizes the existence of a project, assigns the
B.
project manager.
I had B.
B.
B, correct. Which of the following is required for a project and where measurements are gathered and values are monitored?
D.
Yep, that's D. And the following are all basic Six Sigma metrics, except
I had D for that. D.
I had D also.
I had D, and then I scribbled it and went with C. Like a stew nod.
So
I'm like, what did I told Jonathan, I said, why did I do that? And I submitted it already. I couldn't even change my answer.
Catherine.
Hey.
I think here's the thing is the week after we're done with with the control phase, we do a week. 1 week we just do an hour review and I kind of take you through a refresher, and then you get a week to do the exam, because I just don't believe in even my college kids will tell you I'm not a big exam person, because I think a lot of it's just cramming for the event and you just don't take a lot away. So the point is, you just, some of the concepts stick, and you can use them in the future. And all right, so I'll stop sharing and I'm going to go.
I have a question.
Yes, Catherine.
Are we getting both green and yellow?
No, just green.
Because it's white, yellow, green, and then
Yeah.
black, no?
Yeah, no, just green, no yellow.
So should we, I asked Juan and I were talking, and he said the white belt helped him a lot because of the terminology.
Yep.
He feels that he is better understanding the way that you guys write everything when he did the white belt.
Yeah, I think, be honest with you, and maybe, I don't know if you guys have gone through any kind of a white belt training or yellow belt training. They won't really prepare you for this.
Mm.
Because we're going to get in, you'll see as we go through, we're going to have to, there's a lot of statistics, and that's not really covered much, in the yellow belt training. So I think it's what you've been doing in terms of continuous improvement, Catherine, helps you more for this class than say getting certified as a yellow belt or a white belt, because we haven't even gotten into yet. Like next, when we get into the measure phase, we're going to get into, introduction into some statistics stuff, I think we cover a lot. And I'm not sure, that whether it matters if you went ahead and did a prerequisite yellow belt, not for this class. I
Okay,
do yellow belt for my skill up students, and it's just a flyover of the Six Sigma concepts, you know. So you guys are
okay,
past
just
that.
checking.
Yeah, I think you're past that. It's just, I think, some of us are gonna, like all of us, we struggle a little bit sometimes, with new things, especially when we get into Excel. But a lot of the tools, what basically I'm gonna do is try to have you understand, the formulas and why they're set up the way they are. But then largely it's about pressing a button and getting the answer, with the Excel tool. So don't sweat
Okay,
it. Yeah, I don't think you really need a prerequisite. Sorry for the long answer.
no, I was just making sure.
Yeah. So one's in
Mhm.
for a shock.
Oh, well, surprise, let's surprise them. Mm,
All right, so let me, I'm gonna switch over to where we're at. And again, this one here is a lot less painful than the last two. The defined phase is really, there's some cool stuff in it, but a lot of it's didactic and it's me yapping. So here's what we've covered. As a quick review. We've covered the MAIC, what that is. And if anybody needs any quick refresher, just tell me. What is Six Sigma, the history, roles and responsibilities, team selection, and keep in the back of your mind, there's probably not going to be a lot of occasions where you're going to do like lots of Six Sigma projects that are full blown 6-8 month ROI type projects. And then we got into the voice of the customer, these are just terms, critical to quality. We touched on the affinity diagrams and Pareto as a way to select projects. We talked about cost of poor quality last time and the basic Six Sigma metrics. We talked about the business case and the charter, and you guys had to listen to me like do a filibuster on the whole, that whole thing and how that's all put together as part of the course. And then today gets a little more fun. We're going to talk about risk management. I'm sure Tyler's done FMEA. Maybe, I don't know if you guys, John or Catherine have, but you can learn about how FMEA works, which is a way to do risk management. I'm hoping that you guys do some of this at PTA, for scheduling, for setups, things like that, new products. And then we're gonna get into the easy part, which is understanding lean, a little bit of lean history, the 8 ways. So I'm gonna fly through that. So we're down the stretch we go for the defined phase. So the risk is it's a future event, the ability to predict something that's going to happen in the future that might impact our project or our task, right? And we want to, instead of being really good at doing root cause, after something bad happens, can we get better at predicting? All right. We want to see potential risk, and it goes into a whole bunch of categories. And then once we identify future risk, can we mitigate it? In other words, can we put something in place to prevent it? And I think the way this is pointed is towards your Six Sigma project that you would do. But I feel like it's really just good business practice, to kind of have a robust risk management process in your business that isn't about long meetings, but it's something you can do standing up. And people, the more they do it, the better they get at it. It helps us identify and manage problems before they happen. And here's the steps are to identify risks and categories, group them, and then kind of define who owns them. And then the risk assessment is kind of estimating the possible impacts of those risks. All right, kind of quantifying, put a number to how high the risk is. And then how are we going to respond to it? What are the actions? How are we going to track it? And then closing identified risks. And the steps, again, there they are. And again, the categories could be human and physical resources. We don't have enough people. Our people aren't trained well enough. They could be technology. It could be suppliers. Might be, there might propose some risks. A customer, security, legal, you name it. The weather in certain companies might be an issue. What do they call when they hack into your computer? Cybersecurity is definitely a risk. These are all things, different types of individual things that can impact your project or your whole company. And we want to look at the range of the possible impacts, kind of prioritize them, attack the ones that are most logical, the most costly, the ones that happen, are likely to happen the most often. So it's a system. It's a nice, neat system to kind of look at all the possible, brainstorm all the possible risk to our project or to our business, and kind of be able to quantify them and then start to attack them as a team. There's people like one of my friends, Lexi Burney, she's the lean manager at Dymax up in Torrington, and she'll tell you that this is her favorite tool is FMEA. It is kind of cool once you get used to it. Tyler, have you guys done that? Done a bunch of FMEA at the OMC?
Yep.
Yeah, I figured. So risk management involves planning and implementing steps to reduce or eliminate risk owners. I guess I'm gonna skip through a lot of this, a lot of words. I want to get into the FMEA. The idea behind it is we're bringing visibility to risks that maybe we don't talk about, or things that we address after they already happen. For PTA, for example, you got certain jobs that are going to go out onto the floor, and you might have had, there's a risk for, a defect, or it might be a risk for a setup taking too long or too much scrap, or those are things that you can anticipate before and not, necessarily have to react afterward. And depending on the risk severity, and I'll show you how we calculate that, you report the risk status of each category to senior management. Well, most of us don't really have that, senior management. So we got to figure out what are we going to do with it. We know it could happen. Here's the likelihood it could happen. Here's if it does happen. Like a spill would be a great example. The classic for you, Tyler. Release or something like that. God forbid if that ever happens.
Sensitive subject, Bill. Sensitive subject.
Yeah, right. And that's why you guys are really good at risk management now, because then the risk closure. The owners are responsible for recommending the risk closure. And again, this is geared toward a Six Sigma project, guys. That's why it's very formal in terms of, executives and risk closure and all that. I think for me, FMEA is a really good, couple of times a week exercise to be done standing up, in a huddle format. So here it is. This is FMEA. Oh, here comes Ray. Let me let him in. Hey, you there, Ray?
Hey, yes, sorry, man, a little late.
All right. So we just got into we kind of reviewed the quiz answers. We're talking right now about risk management. Like I just gave an overview of why we even think about risk management, why we should think about it, and now perfect timing. Now we're going to get into probably the most popular process for risk management, FMEA. And it's an analysis technique, and it's really fun because I think it's really important because it attempts to quantify something that you can't really put a number to, right? And again, I think the takeaway for me is that as much as possible, when I'm doing continuous improvement activity, it's not something I do solo. Right. Again, FMEA is not really effective, nor is root cause analysis. If I just sit in my desk and do FMEA by myself, it takes input, it takes feedback, it takes back and forth thinking, kind of like a lot of the affinity diagrams, the Pareto stuff. It's best done with that 3 to 5 person A3 size group of people. So I think the cool takeaway here is that we're trying to quantify something that isn't easily quantified. Because remember, Six Sigma is about putting a number to things, measuring. And it's a structured approach to predict failure, identifies ways in which process can fail to meet critical customer requirements. And we're going to estimate the severity, how many times what's the likelihood that it'll happen, how we're going to detect it. We'll evaluate the current control plan for preventing these failures. A lot of times it's in your QMS. Obviously risk management is part of your quality management system, and it usually exists in the quality. When you get audited, they want to see it. They want to see that you're doing FMEA. But I feel like it's such an important tool like from a day to day, you know, as I'm scheduling jobs, I'm scheduling work, understanding what the risks are so I can go train or go mitigate the risk in some way. You know, maybe there's an equipment issue that we've seen in the past. Well, I just don't want to, I want to try to predict that. And there's a bunch of types of FMEA that are used in different different circumstances. One is design, you know, so that's like, it's an essential part of R&D, bringing on new products, bringing new parts in, you know, like for example, Tyler again, you know, like bringing new parts in from a new customer. And, you know, and what are all that's design FMEA. Equipment FMEA, analyze failure modes in all of our equipment. Like when will it fail? What's the likelihood it'll fail? What if it did fail? What's the impact of it in terms of time and money? And then the most familiar is the process FMEA, which is performed early in the quality planning phase to analyze failure modes in manufacturing. And that's probably the one that we're most familiar with. And then the system FMEA is on a product or service at the early concept design. So it kind of goes with design failure mode analysis. So here's a template of, you know, so basically this is kind of the working document when you have your team together and you want to go through this process. And we're going to kind of go through, I think, you know, for part of me, Tyler, for flying over it, you know, because you've already seen it, but you already do it. We're going to go through each step of it one at a time. So it's almost like the A3 form, except it's the FMEA template, and it's kind of like, let's proceed through it. So the first column is the process function or the step. And this is the column, you list each product or process step that will be considered in the analysis. The potential failure modes are all the particular failure modes that might occur in each function. We're going to touch on those in a second. So, and then third is list potential failure effects and that might affect the process. How can it go wrong? What are the likely effects of each failure? What's the cost to our customer? What's the cost to our business? And then list all possible causes that lead to the failure mode happening. And what are some current process controls for each failure mode? How do we prevent it? What controls are in place to mitigate or prevent the failures? And then you have a severity rating, and those are, you'll see how we add those up as we go along. Because basically what we're trying to do is we're ranking either 1 to 5 or, you know, 1 to 10, you know, for each of those categories of what that particular risk might be. So again, we're trying to predict failure. All right. And there's a rating scale. Some people, you know, again, you see here, like, some, what do you got? You guys use a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 10, Tyler?
I'm actually not sure what we use. I think it's a 1 to 10.
Okay. So, you know, so, you know, the thinking there is that, you know, if the risk is a 10, it's like off the charts, you know, and if it's a 1, and it could be, you know, for what's the likelihood that this is going to happen very often? You might say, well, you know what, happened every 5 years. Well, then for occurrences, it would be very low. You know, if it's likely to happen 4 or 5 times a year and the impact's big, then maybe it'd be a 8 or a 9. But that's how whether you use a 1 or a 5, you want to make it simple so everybody understands, you know, that 10 is severe. You know, we've got to do something about it. And then 1 is not. And the occurrence rating, again, so you use that same scale. Here, I just kind of did that example of the occurrence, like how likely is it to occur? How often could it occur? And again, you're predicting. And here's the ratings for the occurrence. Possible failure rates, 1 in 8, 1 in, so you can actually measure how often this happened in the past to mitigate risk. And then, and this is just an example of how you can set up your rating scales. Detection, how easy is it to catch? You know, so you're gonna give it a score based on how well we can detect it. Is it hard to catch, or is our customer gonna catch it, or is the government gonna catch it? You know, so we want to have. So basically, the idea is that for each of these general categories of risk, we're gonna come up with a scale, 1 to 10. And here's an example of 1 for detection. You know, if we're likely to catch it, it's gonna be very low. If we're not likely to catch it, then it's a huge risk, and we'll make it 10. You know, if we don't catch it, the plant will blow up, or our customer's gonna be upset with us, or whatever. The RPM, the risk prioritization number, is the product of severity, occurrence, detection. And so basically it's taking all of those risk categories. So if I got 3 10s, right, for each of these, for the occurrence, for the, you know, for the severity, I add them all together. I basically multiply them all together, and I come up with a risk prioritization number. And then you rank them, and guess which ones we're going to attack? The highest, right? The ones that are the highest are the ones we want to focus on. It's not all of them, but it's a nice, neat way to take a look at. And again, I think it's a great brainstorming session. And as you get better, as the team gets better at it, they understand the process, it can go pretty quickly. And then there's recommended actions, which is step 11, brainstorming for those that are very high, you know, for severity, occurrence, detection. Those are the 3 examples here. So you're looking at a particular risk. How severe would it be? Would it shut us down? Would it, you know, cause us to lay people off? Would the fire department have to show up? Whatever. And then, so you guys get that? Did I explain that clearly enough in terms of the general, what we're grading the risk on, those 3 things? You guys get it?
Mm-hmm.
No problem? Okay. And you have a responsible person. So you're basically making a to-do list, you know, and I think I love taking the to-do list, and guess what I like to do with them? Give you 3 guesses. The first 2 don't count. Put them on the A3 board. Because I got to pull a team, usually 3 to 5 people, and go after a particular risk that comes out of the FMEA. And here's the action taken. And we're going to update the scores after we've made some countermeasures to mitigate risk.
So when we do the severity, how many times that happens and how hard is it's to detect, and then we do it again for the other 3 at the end, correct?
Yeah, you know, let's pretend that we're going to do for the next week schedule at PTA, for example. All right. So you have every job listed that's going to run. Maybe it's not a week, maybe it's 3 days, whatever you decide. Right. And the idea is you're going to go through each of those. Like if we have what's the risk for, let's pick one job even. What's the severity of the job going bad?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's the cost to us? What's the cost of the customer? What's the likelihood that would happen? So you go through those 3 categories with whatever you're trying to assess the risk on, whether it be a job, whether it be a project, Six Sigma project. So we're going to judge it for the severity of if the risk did happen. We're going to grade it on what's the likelihood that it'll happen, which is the occurrence, and then how easy is it to catch. If it's hard to catch, it's and the severity is high, and it could happen likely, then we have to come up with a plan. Like a lot of tools, Catherine, this is about gaining agreement, you know, and kind of making things very visible. Instead of getting, you know, being really good at, like, you know, MRB, you know, or answering complaints or cleaning up spills or putting out fires, you know, stuff like that. We want to get good at mitigating. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
And again, as it's a living document, as we mitigate risk, we want to update it. And a lot of this is done in your QMS, your quality management system, if you're ISO, which both of you got, all you guys are, Olbrich too. And again, there's the template. So that's a flyover on the FMEA. Maybe I'll come up with a few quiz questions. I'll check the exam, see if there's, I think there probably are, just to make sure that I explained it well. And now we get into the easy part of our program, which is lean and understanding lean. You know, it's interesting. You know, just to give you a little bit of background, I'll wait till history. I'll wait till the history piece. All right. So what's lean? The idea is to eliminate waste. All right. That's kind of what everybody thinks about. This is not how I think about lean. I think about lean more the Toyota production system. which is really about building leaders throughout the company. Asking people to use every brain cell. But if, largely most people, when they talk about lean at cocktail parties, they talk about, oh, that's about eliminating waste. But it's about eliminating waste and allowing only value to be pulled through the system. So there's a lot of waste that we do just in the course of our daily work. And it's about identifying and driving value. It's about establishing flow. And, obviously, I always think of flow as an order comes in and it never stops moving. It moves ever so slowly, but it still moves. It doesn't stop. And the things that stop it are the 8 wastes, which we're going to cover again as a review in a second. And basically identifying and driving value is identifying what our customer, how they define value. And it's about waste elimination, obviously. And there's a pretty cool book. I took people at my company, Duraflex, I bought 75 copies of this book, and we went through chapter to chapter. This was actually the first book that we read together. And we meet every Wednesday and go chapter 1. And the following week we do chapter 2. And I put together a little quiz for each chapter. But and here's the steps that James Womack spells out in lean thinking of how you proceed to do lean. 1, specify value, which is desired by the customers, and that could be, it's got to be a time thing. Like what does the customer want to see in terms of lead time? Identify the value stream, and I think the best example for me would be Tyler, the way your business is set up. In terms of uppers and lowers. That would be a value stream, like it's general categories of the processes that you have. And then once you've identified those value streams, pick one. I always start with one and make the product flow. Make it, like start to go from start to finish, from receiving all the way through, like receiving raw materials, all the way through the process step by step. PTA, I think we're going to do, which is the one we talked about on Tuesday, the Lean Beret meeting. We're going to actually do a value stream map on a particular. I don't think. Oh, Ray, none of you guys were in that meeting. That's right. It's I think it's carriages or what do you call it? It's one of the.
Oh, it's carousel.
Yes, which is going to be a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to do that with the specify value, identify the value stream, make the product flow continuous, and then introduce pull systems. And the idea behind pull systems, Tyler is very familiar with, is it kind of links together departments or silos, right? It makes them one, right? So like, and then manage toward perfection. So the number of steps and the amount of time and information needed to serve the customer continually falls. Once you do this, you take days and weeks out of your lead time. And that's the whole idea. Like when in my business, lean thinking was really about how can I be faster than everyone else? And lean thinkers, and everybody says, yeah, but you got to have good quality. Well, no kidding. It's like, and the leap of faith is that if I cut out all that waste, then I'm going to have the best quality possible, plus the best profit possible. All right. That's kind of a leap of faith. Like, in other words, the longer my processes are, the more stops they are, the more handoffs there are, then my quality is going to suffer. And also my sales per labor hour, our economics are going to suffer. The shorter I can make it, the better quality and the better profit, in that order. And the 5 principles. So, and again, you got to remember, this is a tough one too, that, out of, if you can lean your processes out, you can set up value streams, you can make them flow. And the frustrating part about it is you're always going to have about 99% waste, but the problem is you can't see it. So that's where tools like value stream mapping, some of the other lean tools that's the purpose of them. Actually, the value stream mapping textbook is called Learning to See, because the waste that we can see with the naked eye is very small compared to what you can see once you do a map, stuff like that. And identify and map the stream. The value stream, again, is defined as all the activities across all parts of the organization. So it's like going from silos or departments to looking at it like we're all one big department. All right. Because a lot of times when you have handoffs, there's usually a lot of time in between. There's also sometimes a lack of accountability in terms of, you can sub-optimize a certain department. They're super, but this department's no good. There's a lot of advantages to start to think about your business as a value stream. And create flow. And that's where I think the A3 process is really good, because I want to start identifying and eliminating and have a process in my business where we can start to go after that waste. And customer pull, I want to, the idea there is I ship one, I make one, and sometimes obviously that doesn't make sense all the time, but it's replenishment based on consumption. And the way I think about customer pull is, why do I have raw material inventory? Because I can't get my materials to my building fast enough to please my customer, to make my customer happy. And why do I have finished good inventory? Well, it's because I can't produce fast enough to meet customer demand. So the idea is customer pull is creating a Kanban system. The term Kanban, it's another word for replenishment based on consumption. And largely it's to avoid the waste of overproducing, where you're pushing materials to the next process before they're ready. This is best exemplified with the planes. I think, Tyler, I've done the planes with you. I'd like to do it with Catherine and Ray and Jonathan too, with that PTA, because I think it really shows how many more planes we can build, by doing pull compared to, station to station. And then the last one is pursue perfection. And a little bit of history. You guys can ignore this slide. Because I've been thinking about this a lot. Is I'm an old man. I'm 60. When I was a kid and I was going down the highway, it was not unusual to see cars pulled over on the side of the road with the hood up, with smoke billowing out, right? And it wasn't like, if you took 10 trips on the highway on Route 84, 8 of those trips you see a car in some kind of disrepair on the side of the road. Or you'd be driving down the road and all of a sudden the car in front of you, the muffler would drop, and there'd be sparks flying all over. They'd have to go off the side of the road. People would use like wire and stuff to keep their muffler on. Timing belts would all of a sudden go, and that was like a $300 or $400 job. Catalytic converters. And then the oil embargo, when I got my license, my father decided that my first job as a driver after I got my license was to go sit in line to get gas. Because based on your license plate, if it was even, you go on Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday. If it was odd, you go a certain day, and you have to wait 2 hours to get gas. And the cars that
Yeah, the Six Sigma class.
the
name
cars
me?
that were that people drove were like,
Ed just walked by me.
I gotta silence you,
Okay.
okay? Cat,
By 2:30. All right.
I gotta silence Cat. Silence. I'm just kidding. Cars were like, it was Chevrolet, it was Ford, and it was Chrysler, and they were just huge for one, and the quality was not good. And then all of a sudden, people started buying these little Toyotas and Datsuns. And my father bought one. 7 kids in the family, 5 kids in the family. 7. We couldn't even ride at the same time. But you know what happened? They didn't break. You can drive them for 200,000 miles. They would rot sometimes. That they weren't all that well protected against all the salts and everything on our roads, but they didn't break. And so people started to take notice of that and bought more of them. And Toyota invited a lot of those executives from Ford and General Motors and Chrysler over to Japan to try to understand what they're doing. All right. And they're really open. You can go to Toyota City next week if you wanted, and they have you, and they take you through exactly how they have the highest quality, but the problem was when they all came back, that they forgot about the people part of it. The people at Toyota are very, very engaged. They can stop the line at any time. They're making 1,500 A3s, improvements, suggestions per shift. You know, they've been doing it for a long time. They're very good at it. So when the executives came back from Japan, they didn't realize that part of it. They thought that, oh, we need to buy some lights, because they saw that, you know, when someone saw a problem, there was a light and it went off. So I said, lean, we gotta get lights. And then they didn't really call it the Toyota production system, because that wouldn't look too good for General Motors or Ford or Chrysler to call what they saw the Toyota production system. That wouldn't go too good, right? Because they're trying to sell Chevys and all that. So they called it, we had to come up with a word for it. So they called it lean manufacturing, which is a problem because now everybody just thinks it's for manufacturing. When in fact, you know, now, you know, there's lean healthcare, there's lean, you know, IT, we call it agile or scrum. So you know, there's more waste in the office processes than there are in production. So that's the history that I like to give. And a lot of it was because the quality that even back then in the mid 70s, where those cars that coming from Toyota, they just did not break. You know, people traded their cars in after 2 or 3 years back then, because that's about all you can get out of them, you know? And then when Toyota came, you can run them into the ground. They would rot. Like I said, you know, they'd be like there'd be rust all around the bottom, because they just, I guess, you know, they hadn't figured out that we use a lot of salt on our roads because it snows, especially here in New England. So again, right after World War II was really when Toyota had no choice but to figure out how do we, because after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, after the bombs, when they tried to rebuild Japan, they needed a lot of trucks. And Toyota is really, they were a loom company. They built looms to make cloth, and they were the best in the world at it because they came up with what they call, it was a self-stopping loom. So the idea of the way that fabric was, I don't know if you guys know what a loom looks like. I'm sure you do. But basically the cloth would get caught in it, and it would take hours and hours to disassemble the loom and then untangle everything. And they felt like that was very disrespectful, the Toyota grandfather. So he came up with the first self-stopping loom. As soon as the cloth got caught, it was it stopped immediately, and it would and the operator would not have to spend 2 or 3 precious hours of their life untangling. And this is the basis of the concept of judoka, which really means, the way the Americans have interpreted that, it's giving human qualities to a machine. All right. But really what it's about is respect for people. In other words, they don't think, Toyota never thought that it was respectful to expect people to spend 3 hours, 4 hours in the hot sun disassembling and trying to untangle fiber from a loom. And then they started, when the grandfather passed away, he felt like he wanted his son to do something that was meaningful to the world, because they were the best loom company in the world. They were known. It was Toyota Loom Company. And so his son decided that he wanted to get into motor cars. You know, so after World War II, they were probably doing about 200 or 300 trucks per month. Very, very small productivity. I always envisioned like a barn with sawhorses and saws and stuff. And then after the World War II, after the bombings, and, you know, Japan was like the moon, basically. You know, you figure people were, you know, hundreds of thousands of people were vaporized in seconds. And when the US military went in to rebuild, they needed trucks. And they told Toyota, we need over 1,500 trucks per month, not 300. And Taichi Ono, my hero, who's the godfather of lean, he figured out with those operators, those people in that business, how to increase productivity without adding a lot of bodies or a lot of money. And that's kind of where the Toyota production system came from. And then when they invited the American executives over to show them what they're doing, they came away with, call Granger, we need more lights. You know, they just missed the whole point about continuous improvement, and then judoka, respect for people. That's what lean is. All right. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Yeah, it is about waste, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's about developing leaders throughout the business, and capitalizing and really enjoying the creativity and the intelligence of people, and not treating people like they're robots. So there's a history. I'm going to skip it because I just gave it to you. And the 8 deadly waste. You guys are pretty familiar with this. Use the acronym downtime. Again, think about flow. You know, something comes in the back door, you know, raw materials, in your case, Tyler, you get parts. They never stop, right? From the minute they come in, they're just moving. It's flow is not something we'll ever get to, if you know, because it's a goal really. And the things that stop the order are these 8 ways. So if I have defects, guess what? My flow stops. I have to stop and fix it. I have to stop and rework it, or scrap it, or send it to MRB, or put it aside. Overproduction is the second one. Again, this is downtime. Overproduction is doing more than my customer wants right now. And the way I define customer is the person that my parts go to next. I have 2 customers. I got the person I'm giving my parts to next, and I'm giving my other customer is the person that pays the bills at the end of the day. And overproduction is passing along more material, more work that my customer can handle. Right, that overproduction is called the mother of all waste because it causes all the other ones. If I'm overproducing, then it's going to cause me, if I have more material than I can move along, I have to put it somewhere. So I have to create inventory. And when I do that, I have to transport the material, which is you can see down there, the 5th waste. I have to find it, you know, put it somewhere. So I have to move it. And then there's motion, which is humans moving. And then I might damage it. It might sit there and get damaged. I cause the waste of waiting, because if I'm overproducing, that means that what I really needs to be done right now is not happening. It's waiting. And so defects, overproduction. Remember that overproduction is the mother of all waste. Waiting, people wait, emails wait, materials wait, parts wait on shelves, part wait on bread racks, parts raw material waits in the warehouse. There's hours and hours and hours. People wait for people from quality to come and check my work or sign off on my work. Just a ton of waiting. All these things are called non-value added work. And the way I define that is it's work that your customer you can't invoice it. You know, you can't put a waiting fee or a transportation fee on your invoice. That comes out of your profit. And being an employee-owned business at PTA, like this is all money that comes out of your ability to impact your bonus or your next raise. Yes, it comes out of the bottom. So if I can improve that, then it's gonna go right to the bottom line. Again, the difference is, lean is about eliminating waste. 6 Sigma is about eliminating variation. But lean to me and the Toyota production system is about improving people's quality of life. That's what it's about. It's not about just simply taking waste out. It's about how can we put ourselves in a position where our employees can own their own homes. They can buy a nice car if they want. They can put their kids through school. They can retire with some money in the bank, that kind of thing. That's what it's about. If that's not the goal, then don't do it. Because it's really too hard, So again, let me continue through the waste. Non-value added processing is work that we do that goes above and beyond what the customer needs or what the product needs. So it's like if they're saying, hey, you know what, we need a level 5 on that, and we give them a level 7, that would be over non-value added processing. But I also think about things like I have to have somebody sign off on my work. I have to have somebody check my work. That's all non-value added processing. We covered transport, and then inventory is sleeping money. That's materials that we've already invested in. We've already put labor in it. We've already put our lights and our heat in it, and our machine time and everything else. And Taichi Ono used to call inventory sleeping money, because the lifeblood of all of our businesses is cash flow. So inventory is by doing lean, my inventory went from 3.5 million finished good and raws down to 700,000. And now all of a sudden, I remember my controller, my accountant, came to me and said, "Hey, Bill, I don't think the lean's working because we haven't laid anybody off yet," because he didn't really understand. That's not what it's about. But he goes, "I don't know where all this cash is coming from." Well, it's because it isn't sitting out there on the floor. So all of a sudden we had no problem, using with cash anymore. And my business was very slow paying because, it took me a long time to get paid from my customers because they're all contractors and they're waiting for general contractors to pay them. So cash flow was very important in my business. And then we talked about motion. And then the last one is employees underutilized. And from there, I'm talking about a mental standpoint, and having that, asking people to contribute and not just show up and punch in and use their backs and arms and legs. And I'm going to skip through these because I covered them. Unless you want me to slow down, but it's pretty much I covered them, I think, in my own way. And then you're going to have the slides anyway, guys. I'll send those to you. And the way they go together, Lean and Six Sigma, they both have the objectives of producing high value at lower costs. The objectives are different. Again, I like to just take away is Lean is about taking away waste, and Six Sigma is about taking away variation. And you'll see on this table that there's cost value, there's improvement, there's money reasons to do both of them. And in terms of the defined phase, this is the conclusion really of the defined phase. The constraints are that we want to look for potential roadblocks and plan to address them before they become problems. Again, guys, this is if you're doing a 6 or 8 month Six Sigma project. Of course, we want to look at our constraints before we encounter them. Yeah. And congratulations. We are 20% done. That wasn't too bad, right?
No,
Yeah, 40 minutes. Any thoughts, questions? I don't know if I'm going to give you homework or not. I really don't know what I can give you. The homework really starts next week. As we get into the measure phase. Yeah. Hey, that's not the right attitude. You're supposed to say more.
Yeah, more. Yay. Come on, guys. Yay, more.
Now, hopefully it doesn't take long, half an hour, 20 minutes. I'm not, I don't want to overburden anybody. So
You should
Friday
have saw
afternoon,
me.
no good, right?
No.
We'll pick another time.
You should have seen me with this past homework. I was like, come on, guys. What'd you get? They were all A's, and I kept thinking, like, oh my God, there's no way every single question is A. Huh, Jonathan? I was like, Jonathan, what the
yeah. I ended up, I did the first 4 questions and I was like, I'm just going to skip down to 8 and make sure they're not all A.
I know. I'm like, kept
Ah,
second guessing myself. I'm like, what the?
you got it. You got it. I'm going to get the recording to you and maybe a few questions. I'll go through the exam, see if there's anything lean
Yeah,
oriented.
dig something up for us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need to keep practicing, please.
All right. And then
See,
next-
there you go.
then-
Hey.
since you guys showed up, what do you? I know everybody else is going to be listening to the recording, so you guys get to pick next week. What do you want to do next week? Tuesday, Wednesday? Tell me.
Wednesday sounds good for me.
How about you, Tyler? Wednesday's no good from 4 to 6 for Rado, I think, right? Or 3 to 5.
3 to 4:30 for me. I can't do it.
Can we do like 4:30 on Wednesday? How about you, Tyler? You're
Yep,
the first
4
one on here. What do you want to do?
4:30 on Wednesday works. I definitely can't do Monday. It's my son's
Okay.
birthday, so I'll be off that day.
How,
Oh,
is he
happy
4?
birthday to your son.
Is he
Yeah,
4?
he's 4. Can't believe it.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I remember when that little Bambino was born.
Yeah, I know, right? Sam just turned 2.
Oh my
Crazy.
God.
She's growing fast.
She's hell on wheels, I think. I bet.
Oh, yeah.
She runs the house.
Yes, she does, and she knows it.
Have a great weekend. Good seeing your faces. Thank you so much for coming. I'll get
Yeah,
the
of course.
recording and we'll go 4:30 on Wednesday.
Okay.
Sounds
Sounds
good.
good. All right.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Well, see you guys.